Will the 5% GST exemption for new housing purchases help the housing market? Hi everyone, Yinan here. So recently, as an effort to fight for votes, both parties has came out with policies proposed to exempt GST on new housing purchases. And Mark Carney's proposal is to save the GST 5% on first-time home buyers' new housing purchases. New housing, which means pre-construction, right? Because HST is usually not applicable for resale purchases. So really, it's for pre-construction purchases up to $1 million. And Pierre Poilievre, on his side, he's saying that, okay, we're going to give GST exemption, the same 5% to all buyers, right, for new home purchases, up to $1.3 million. So the 1.3 is a higher price tag that will definitely help Toronto and Vancouver's higher pricing housing market more. And it's a more blanket slate that applies to everyone, like all the purchasers who buys new housing, like pre-construction purchases, instead of just first-time home buyers. Now, without getting into the nitty-gritties on the actual policies and how they will be executed, just on the high level, do I think these will help the housing market? And the short answer is that I think a lot of this money will not translate into buyers' actual savings, but instead they will be more to help with developers' building costs, right? And somehow in the pre-construction contract, it will be worded in a way will likely benefit the developer a bit more than the purchasers. It's similar story for the 24,000 HST rebate. As we are aware, that is a government benefit for purchasers, whether you are an end user, whether you're an investor. There's different ways you can get that 24,000 HST rebate back. But most buyers who actually bought a pre-construction before, I doubt you have felt that your price was cheaper because of that, right? It's more of, hey, I'll be lucky if I don't get charged an extra $24,000 on top of my purchase price, or I'll be lucky if I can, pay the $24,000 and get it back within a year after I rent the unit out. So usually when developers pricing their projects, they're going to be pricing based on what can I price at? What's the max I can price at so I can sell my project? And they're not going to set a price and be like, okay, you know what? Let's subtract 24,000 from the price for the benefit of my purchasers, right? That's not how they think. Developers are here to maximize their benefits. So I would guess that if these policies, whether either party become elected on April 28th, either of these policies come into effect, it really depends on how they execute the policy into the actual contracts. It will matters very much differently, right, to developers and buyers. But on the other hand, I do think it is going to be a good incentive to help developers to, in a slow market, to be able to maybe find more buyers somehow, because right now there is very, very little pre-construction sales that's going on, right? Because one, pre-construction sale prices are higher than resale market. So buyers are choosing not to buy pre-construction, especially for condos, because they're so far above what the resale condo market is at. Buyers are choosing resale condos instead of pre-construction. So developers are having a hard time finding buyers for their projects. So with this incentive, maybe it can help them to adjust their cost basis, because right now the developers are facing challenge where they cannot drop their selling price because their cost basis for building these condos are way too high, right? So if they drop price too much, then it's going to have a hard time making a profit on these projects, and the banks will not give them financing to finance their construction or their projects. So they're stuck, right? So resale price is low, construction cost is high, and there's a large gap in between, and that's why developers are not building new homes. And that's not good, because for all the parties, everybody's saying we need more affordable housing, we need to increase supply. Supply is the key issue. So maybe even if these policies only benefit the developers, but at least if it can help them to bring the cost basis down a bit and close the gap more between the cost and the sale price. So maybe this way they can sell more units, and when they can sell more units, there's more construction starts and there's more completions in the future. future. So at one point in the future, we're not going to have a year where there's too little completions, which is completely lack of new inventory that will drive up the housing price again. I think in that way, it is not a bad policy, but I just think that if they want to lower the developers' cost basis and encourage them to build more housing, they can just directly give like developers incentives, right? Such as the HST deduction before for developers that last year we had a period of time where when you build like these qualified multi-family like housing apartments, developers can get an exemption on the HST, right? Which greatly helped to stimulate more builders to want to build more housing, right? And also not just for the big builders, for the mom and pop smaller builders who just flip houses. These potentially can help them as well, because their policies, I think, not only applies to brand new buildings, but also if you tear a house down and do like a flipping, rebuild the house or major renovation, like very major, right? Like maybe, you know, tear everything down except maybe one wall or something, right? I'm guessing that can stimulate more construction to happen, which is good for our economy, good for creating jobs, and generally good for keeping our inventory level at a reasonable level, because at the current level of pre-construction sales, the most likely outcome is that in a 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to have a very few new construction completions. Like no new condos are going to be constructed or completed because there's no sales right now, right? It's kind of like what happens now is a reflection of what's going to happen in the completion market 5 years down the road, right? There's a direct relationship. Like right now in 2025, we have a lot of completions because we sold a lot of units 4 or 5 years ago, right? So it has a downward effect. So I think the intention for these policies are good, but the benefit on the end users, on the actual home buyers, are likely going to be very limited. It's more of a play to get developers wanted to build more homes, but end users, I doubt, will benefit a lot from these, especially for Mark Carney's policy where he's saying this only benefits first-time home buyers, right? Think about like how little first-time home buyer there is in the pre-construction world, right? Most buyers for pre-construction condos are investors. They buy it to rent it out or to sell in the future. They do not buy it to live in, right? Like there's a very small percentage of first-time home buyers buying pre-construction. So for the majority of the buyers are investors. But if they see that, hey, you know what? There are first-time home buyers who's buying the same product I'm buying for cheaper. These investors may be worried. They may feel like, oh, if he's buying for cheaper, he can sell for cheaper too. Then in the future, it may affect my sales or my profitability because the pricing for the building in the units in the building are determined by the lowest sale price, right? If somebody went to sell for like $1 million, it's harder for me to sell for $1,050,000, right? So the first-time home buyers, if they're treated differently from the rest of the buyers on the actual pricing when they buy it, then it's going to affect investor confidence as well, right? So that's another risk from these policies. On the other hand, peer poly is like just across the board, all the buyers for pre-constructions get a tax discount, which is, I think, makes more sense so that everybody can benefit from it, which can, even if the buyers don't get a benefit, but at least it helps reduce the developers' cost basis, stimulate more construction, which is good for the economy and for the stability of housing price in the future, right? So just quickly sharing my thoughts. I do not know the details for these policies. We don't know how it's going to transpire, but these are just, you know, my initial thoughts based on what I've heard. So if you like this kind of content, make sure you like and subscribe. Until next time.